Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Ask Ron. This is Debbie. I'm here with Nelson Fielding, who's filling in for Ron this week since he's away at Mastermind. Many of you already know Nelson from our hotline, but some of you may not. And Nelson's been with Ron for about 19 years now. So Nelson, you ready to get started?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, folks, we're going to have fun today. I'm going to answer your questions. Ron has made me promise that they'll be the right answers, and they'll be close. The first one's from Richard. Richard's from Michigan. His question is, short of a realtor giving me an estimate of value or actually having an official appraisal done on property, what can I find accurate information? Okay, first, we do not do an appraisal. That would get way too costly on our part to order an appraisal on every deal we're looking at. Now he talks about some of the websites, Zillow, and some of them he spent money on, how the appraisals were sometimes $38,000 different on the comps. Well, obviously that's way too much difference. It's hard to give a recommendation on which is the best website, because there are many of them. It's kind of trial and error. Some of them are free, some you have to pay for. Obviously, realtors are the best, but the hardest to get. The reason they're the best is because it gives the original selling price, the asking price, then the selling price, and how many days it was on the market. All the other websites don't give that much information, but like I say, it's hard to get realtor comps. And if you're lucky like me, I have a friend that's a realtor that will pull those for me.
Okay, great. All right, the next question, I guess, is from Desiree.
Yes, out-of-state owners, yellow letters. Her questions are, I located an abandoned property in South Carolina, tracked down the owner of the address in New Jersey. I sent her a yellow letter stating I want to buy the property in South Carolina. The owner called and left me a message stating she wants to discuss. Desiree says she's new at wholesaling process. Her question, how do I purchase property from her in New Jersey and the house is in South Carolina and assign it to another investor for a quick flip? What contracts agreements do I use? Step by step. Well, the best answer on that one, kind of abbreviated, is the closing will always take place in the location where the house is. So that's where the closing would be in Desiree City, South Carolina, and her state. But the paperwork can do back and forth. FedEx goes everywhere. And so when you do a wholesale quick flip, you have to remember that in this case, you never need proof of funds. You're never taking title of the property because you're flipping it or wholesaling to another investor. This is always done to a rehabber, never an owner-occupant, because they don't know how to fix up an ugly house. They go to the bank to borrow the money. Banks don't loan money on ugly houses. So they're always with a rehabber. When you do this, you have to have comps. You have to be able to estimate repairs. When you do this, you make an offer to the seller using Ron's contract with an all-cash offer, $10 binder deposit, and then you go to your buyer's list. And then you start calling all the people on your buyer's list to tell them if they're interested in the property you have under contract. And if they are, you simply flip the property to them. In essence, you're not really selling them the house. You're selling them the contract because it's assignable for a fee, and that permits the rehabber to buy the house direct from the seller. In fact, many times when this takes place, the seller shows up, wants to know where the Ron student is. And of course, the rehabber says they're not going to be here because I'm buying your house. Sometimes the seller will respond, I don't know about that. But when the rehabber says, I'm the guy with the cashier's check, that makes everything fine. So that's basically the overview of how to do a wholesale deal.
Okay, great. All right, next up was from Thomas Erb.
On land trust, this is my favorite. How important is it to close on a land trust on a wholesale deal? Should I agree not to transfer the deed into a land trust if the owner does not like it much? First, we never do a land trust, like I said earlier, because we don't need a proof of funds. We're not in the chain of title. We just flip it to the wholesaler, like I mentioned earlier. So you don't need a land trust in this case that he mentioned.
All right, next up was from Andre Zanders.
This is about pretty houses. She says, I have a pretty house in a neighborhood. They're asking $164,500. They owe $156,000. House was appraised in 2009 for $180,000. Payments are $750,000, plus they have to pay insurance and taxes. First thing, we wouldn't take an appraisal for 2009. That's too far back. So we'd have to get our own comps. She's talking about doing a wraparound mortgage or subject to. In this case, subject to would always be better. And we'd previously talked about subject to deals where you put them in a land trust. When you do that, the trust owns the property, not you, but the beneficiary owns the trust, which owns the house. The good news is the beneficiary's name is not recorded at the courthouse. That's what gives you privacy.
Okay, next up from Harold Hammond.
This is about subject to, which is my very, very favorite. Said he's working on a deal. He's aware he would be paying his mortgage. He's concerned that this deal is going to affect his ability to purchase a new home. Does my payment to the mortgage company count as income to the seller? Answer is no, because this is not rent going to the seller, because he no longer owns a house. You will be making his mortgage payment is his bank with your money. And the lender will usually give them credit for 75% of that payment, because it will show up on his credit report when he buys the new house that he has a previous house still in his name. But he will be able to understand that payments are coming in every month from the person he sold the house to make payments at the bank.
All right, well, thank you, Nelson, for being here. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the hotline?
Yes, basically students who have the hotline privilege, they call in and we go over a deal. Simply, I'm going to ask, is it a for sale by owner or is it a deal with a realtor? Is it an ugly house or a pretty house? I want to ask, what are the comps? You must have comps. Houses that have sold on every deal we do, or you can't make a decision. When students call in, I have to remind them it's not designed to teach over the phone. Teaching or training comes from the whole study courses and the boot camp events. And sometimes I have to remind them, we're just going to go over the deal. I can't answer legal questions or tax questions because of liability, because there's no way I would know all the laws in every city and every state, but I try to direct them in the right place to get those questions answered. There are two things that every student needs. A real estate attorney that understands a land trust, and somebody to advise them on their income tax. Because Uncle Sam's our partner on every deal, whether we like it or not.
Okay, well, that's great information, Nelson. And just a reminder to everyone to mark your calendars for Ron's live Q&A call is this Monday night, the 11th. The call will begin at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so make sure that you call in ahead of time a little bit. It is a live call, and it's interactive for Gold Club members. So use your passcode on your Gold Club membership site, and you will be able to have interactive access. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.